The Farm, a lesson with revenge affair. Here we go. My wife and I started dating in our senior year of high school when we were 17 years old back in 2006. We have been together 17 years and married for 4 years. We met through a family member, and when I first saw her, I instantly fell in love with her. We did everything together and loved spending time with each other. We still hung out with friends but spent as much time as we could with one another. We had slept together for the first time after being together for almost a month or maybe less, can't remember exactly. We both graduated high school and we both worked while I also went to college. We were both still living at home with our parents. We talked about past relationships and were very open with one another. She told me she had been with about 8 men before me. This was tough to hear since we were only 18 years old. She also told me how a cousin exed her when she was a little girl. Fast forward to about 2 years into our relationship, and my wife went out with a co-worker and some of her friends. I found it odd as this co-worker had only started working at her job for a few months. I felt that my wife was getting too close too fast. Anyhow, they went out, and when she got home, she called me. We had not spoken that entire evening. I was a bit upset she was out so long and had not returned my calls. Not common for her, so I thought something was up. After talking to her for a bit, she came out and told me her co-worker and her ended up going to the movies with 2 friends of her co-worker, male friends. Her co-worker ended up leaving with one of the guys she liked, and my wife was left with the other guy at the movies. According to my wife, she felt bad leaving and stayed to finish the movie. She swears nothing happened. I was furious and could not believe this was happening. Right away I started thinking the worst, that she had been unfaithful to me. I was more hurt though because she didn't see anything wrong with staying at the movies with this guy she had just met and took his feelings into consideration. Feeling bad about leaving the guy alone, but yet didn't think of my feelings and how I would take this, and fell about it. We argued and had a rocky few days, but she insisted nothing happened. It was hard to get over it, but I tried my hardest. A week or so go by and I went to visit her at her job to have lunch with her. When I arrived, she was outside the place talking to a guy. She introduced him as a friend of her co-workers, the same girl she went out with that night. I didn't think much of it at that very moment. Later that day I asked her more about who that guy was, and she said it was the guy from that night which she stayed at the movies with. I lost it and could not believe it. I felt that she had been lying to me all along and felt convinced that something happened that night of which she was not being honest about. Whether it was a kiss or bonding, I strongly felt like she had cheated on me. After this I shut down and was being very distant with her. I felt hurt and betrayed. I did not have any evidence, but I think it's obvious that something went down. We stayed together, but the relationship was very tough and things were not the same. Not that it was the right thing to do, but I wanted to get back at her. I met a girl named Maria while in college and we became close. I was introduced to her by a friend from high school. She was her cousin. At the moment she was in a relationship but was also going through some difficult times with her boyfriend. We eventually started dating while we were both still in relationships with other people. Feelings began to get deeper and deeper, where we decided to end our other relationships and become exclusive with one another. We had a great time together. We had an amazing time and felt like we really loved each other. She would get upset because although I had broken up with my wife to be with her, my wife would still come around my place since my mother and her had become close. I had never told my mother how I thought my wife had cheated on me with the guy from the movies. It's about summer of 2008 now, and my grandfather passed away. My wife, being as close as she was with my mother, had come by to pay her respects. Can't remember exactly how it ended up happening, but we had slept together. It just happened. She had started dating some guy named John. So, by no means was it a reconciliation between us. I was still with Maria. I felt horrible that I had cheated on Maria but didn't say anything to her about it. A few months go by and my wife called me to tell me she was pregnant and that she was 100% sure I was the father, as her and John had not slept together and she had not been with anybody since we broke up. I could not believe this happened. We were 20 years old at the time, and it's something I was not ready for. I had to break the news to Maria and confess to her what I had done. She was very upset and hurt but forgave me and we stayed together. While my wife was pregnant, we were not together. She had ended it with Sam once she found out she was pregnant. Believing that it was my son, I went to doctor appointments with her and my family even had a baby shower for her. Maria hated the situation and became more and more uncomfortable with it. One night I went over to my wife's house to talk about upcoming things pertaining to the baby. Maria had followed me and they had a confrontation. It got physical, with my wife punching Maria a few times. Cops were called but eventually no charges were pressed. My wife was about 5 to 6 months pregnant at the time. It was a horrific experience and I felt like I was to blame. Throughout the pregnancy my wife and I stayed very much in contact, for the baby's sake of course. A few times we became intimate, which led to us sleeping together. I was still with Maria at the time. When my wife had our son in 2009, it was an eye-opening experience for me. I wanted nothing more but to reconcile with my wife and give us another try. I couldn't stand not being there for my son and having another man in his life as his father figure. I asked my wife to forgive me for my doings and for not being together while she was pregnant. It was a difficult time for her. I hated myself for it. She forgave me and we agreed to try to repair what we had and start fresh, I guess. I ended it with Maria, although she was just as close to ending it with me because she explained she couldn't deal with the situation of me having a baby with someone else. And even though she knew the day would come when the baby was born, she thought she would be stronger and would be able to deal with it. We moved in together and gave our relationship another try. I was still a bit uncomfortable with the thought of not being my son's true father, being that when she became pregnant, she was dating John. This led me to having a DNA test performed. Results were that I was indeed the father. I was honest with my wife about it and explained to her that things were not good between us at the time and I had my doubts. She was not very happy with the situation but got over it and stressed how she was not lying about being with someone else and that all along she knew I was the father. Fast forward now to about mid-2013. Our relationship was going well, but a few times we would get into big fights because she would go out with her girlfriend and I would think she was out doing other stuff. Reason for this was she would get dressed up like she was looking to impress somebody and wear a lot of makeup. But really what got me super upset was that she would come home very late and a lot of times drunk to the point where she couldn't walk straight. I tried not to let it get to me, but I would suspect her of being unfaithful. Stories sometimes didn't add up, or not answering my calls, and being distant. We would argue and then make up. Around this time, we found out she was pregnant again, this time with our daughter. It was the happiest moment for both of us. I wanted to be there for her this time around and did everything I could to be the best man possible. Our daughter was born in 2013 and my wife started nursing school soon after that. She was working full-time and going to school full-time. I was only working part-time at the moment as I had lost my previous job and the one I found was only hiring for part-time employees. Since I was home more, I would do most of the house chores and stuff with the kids. Pretty much for 3 years my wife only had to worry about school and work. I made sure to do everything I could so that she wouldn't have to worry about anything else. While she was in nursing school, we had some problems. It was bad enough that we hardly saw each other because of her schedule, but any spare time she had, she would spend it with friends from school, going out drinking to bars and studying at the library on Saturdays. It got so bad that I felt like we were literally roommates. Our bonding life was non-existent. I proposed for us to go to counseling, but of course she was too busy and didn't have the time. I kind of sucked it up and just dealt with it. When she finally finished school, things seemed to become normal again. We were spending a lot more time together and actually being a family. I have always put my kids first, and my wife also. Always putting myself last for their happiness, sacrificing for their well-being. I eventually went back to school and graduated college and found a job in my field of it. Things were looking better as a whole and our relationship was also going great. In 2018 we finally got married. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I loved her so much and knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. Fast forward to summer 2022. We made a big decision to move from New York to Georgia. We've always talked about it and both wanted to make this move. She has family here but I don't. All my family is back in New York, parents and brothers, not many friends left behind. Mostly acquaintances and people I worked with. We have loved it so far and the kids have as well. Recently though some problems have come up and I think they have to do with our rough past. At the place she is currently working, a major hospital in our area, she's become close to some co-workers. She spends a lot of time at the gym, almost going every day. She is obsessed with losing weight. I've never considered her to be fat. She's always been thick, which I love, but I wouldn't say fat. She's 56 and weighs about 155 pounds. Her weight has always bounced between this and 175. She says she doesn't like her body. Meanwhile, I'm always telling her that I love her body and that it is perfect. And I mean this 100%. I wouldn't change a thing about it. Anyway, I also found a weird phone number on her phone. When I questioned her about it, she said it's from a coworker, a male coworker. When asked why she needed to be talking to male coworkers, she explained he gave it to her but she never gave him her number. Why would she save it though? Her behavior has been rather suspicious to me. She recently told me she doesn't feel like sleeping together too often is good for our marriage because it's no longer fun or exciting. She feels that going days without sleeping together would be better for us. I could not understand this as I love to sleep with her, and even if one day goes by without it, I start withdrawing like a drug addict does when they don't get their drugs. I call it my medicine. We were arguing and fighting more and more. She was spending more and more time at the gym. Whatever time we did spend together, it was with the kids as a family. No intimacy whatsoever. I was becoming more and more angry and was starting to show my anger. I was getting very upset about the smallest things and even my kids were starting to notice. I confronted her about something going on and her possibly cheating on me. She denied it and said it's all in my head and that I'm allowing my mind to play tricks on me. Now, to her credit, I haven't found any questionable text messages on her phone, or emails, or voicemails. But she could easily just delete them all. I have full access to her email and phone. She knows this and has no problem with me checking it if I felt I needed to. We are on the same cell account, so I've also checked call, text logs, I haven't been able to find any concrete evidence of her doing anything. Aside from this, I have this feeling in my gut telling me something is not right. All those thoughts from our past come back to haunt me. I start thinking of her being unfaithful again and scenarios play out in my mind. We got into a big fight 3 weeks ago because she wanted to go to have some drinks at another nurse's house, female, where other coworkers were going to be there. I was upset about it since we haven't been doing too good and would think that fixing our marriage should be a priority to her. Instead, she wanted to go have some drinks and a good time. She did invite me to come with her, but I felt the invite wasn't genuine and she knew I would say no. Eventually, I told her to do what she wants and what makes her happy, but I felt we should separate for some time and hopefully it'll help us both. It's the last thing I truly wanted to happen, but felt that it would help her realize what is important in her life, or at least what I think should be important in her life, her family more so than anything or anybody else. She said she didn't agree with a separation, but also said she wouldn't stop me from leaving. The next morning while in bed we talked more and actually communicated with one another. No arguing, no yelling, no screaming, no Hulk on my part. We agreed to work on our problems and even brought up going to counseling. For the past 3 weeks things have been great, but not without some issues on my part. I can't seem to be able to stop thinking of her cheating on me. When she is at work, I think that she is cheating at work with a coworker. When she's at the gym, I think she's meeting up with somebody and cheating. If I am not with her, I think she's cheating. As much as I try to tell myself that it's all in my head and nothing is going on, I can't seem to stop thinking about it. Even when we are intimate and sleeping together, I can't stop thinking that she's thinking about someone else. Since the big fight 3 weeks ago, things have definitely improved. More communication, more intimacy, more understanding. I do feel like I'm getting her back little by little. Aside from this, I still keep dealing with the thoughts of her being unfaithful to me, or that she was. She swears she loves me and wants only me and values our marriage and our family. Even though she is telling me this, I can seem to help thinking that she is not being genuine and it's all just a lie, her covering her tracks. I love her very much and could not see myself with anybody else. I value our marriage and our family, and last thing I would want is a divorce. But how can I just get these thoughts out of my mind? Why can't I stop thinking about what happened so many years ago? What are some of your thoughts? Am I just letting our past come back to haunt me? Should I just blindly trust her? Am I too insecure? Is the problem all me? Should we see a counselor, or am I the one who needs it? I had DNA tests done on my son and I am the father. Her genes seemed to have overpowered mine when it came to my son. No need for my daughter, as she looks exactly like my mother, so didn't feel the need to have her tested. Highly doubt she would be willing to take polygraph. I want to trust her 100%. I want to believe everything she tells me. But when you've been with a person for so long, you become very familiar with just about every aspect of their life, can tell when something is not right. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's just my insecurities, maybe it's just my mind playing tricks on me and making me focus too much on our rough past and triggering these new feelings. But what if it's not, and something is going on? She even told me that since we moved and I don't have anybody here, no family and friends, I'm clinging on to her and not letting her have space. She told me to find some friends or to find ways to keep busy because always being together is not healthy. She says all I want to do is be home watching movies or always spending time together at home. I prefer to be home with her and the kids, doing things as a family. I don't have any desire to go out with people or co-workers. I love spending time with her and the kids. I get all my satisfaction being with her. I don't get pleasure out of hanging out with other people. I can see how I can come off as being too clingy and maybe suffocating her. But what's so wrong about always wanting to be with my wife and share all of our time together? We are different, I get it, but at times I feel as if she doesn't desire me, or as if she would rather spend time with co-workers and friends. Worst is feeling as if I'm not a priority to her and simply a person she shares a home and kids with. Finally, no, not in touch with Maria. Many years ago, I heard she got married and had kids but got divorced. I didn't actually cheat on her. When the whole thing happened with her going to the movies, I suspected her of doing something, but never had actual evidence. So, I gave up and met Maria, but we ended it before I actually started dating Maria. Was I not in the right to think that she had been unfaithful by staying at the movies with that guy, not answering my calls that night, and then seeing the guy at her job that day? I know this is a very long time ago and I'm not trying to live in the past, but with the recent stuff going on between us, it's triggered all those past feeling and bad memories. We've had great times and not all has been bad. I've never actually caught her cheating but have always suspected. Going to look into the VAR, I have sort of let myself go. I'm not in the best shape, but also not in the worst shape either. Just recently started working out again and she even came with me to the gym. As a way to keep myself busy, get healthier, and make her see me again as the man I was once. Things have been better between us. We are communicating more and haven't actually been fighting or arguing. It's just tough because I want to believe that everything is okay but at the same time keep thinking, what if it's not and she is cheating? We've been spending a lot of time together and as a family in general. Bonding life has increased a lot where it's almost every other day now. She has been initiating a lot more and has been more intimate. Here's the kicker, things have been better and I want to forget about our recent rough patch and the possibility of her cheating. But the little devil on one shoulder is telling me that this is all just a cover-up on her part to keep me from being suspicious. I've tracked her whereabouts and as of yet, she has always been where she says she is. I've tracked her phone and her car. I've driven to her job without her knowing and her car is there and her phone showing her being there as well. Only other possibility is her going somewhere in another car and also leaving her phone at work. I doubt it though, as she always has her phone. I would hate to think she could be so reckless as to leave her phone because since we have kids, and in case of an emergency she wouldn't be able to answer. But I guess you never know. When she goes to the gym, I've tracked both her car and phone, and the same thing, both show her as being at said location. I haven't gone to her gym though like I have to her job. I was able to access her phone with the software I purchased. I was able to recover deleted texts, contacts, pictures, etc. and was happy to not find anything that would suggest cheating. But at the same time, I was also upset that I didn't find anything because it's leading more and more to this all being in my head and me just being paranoid, insecure, anxious, etc. She is not very tech savvy, so for her to somehow find some crazy way get rid of stuff on her phone is not likely. This software recovered stuff going back years. Last thing is to get the VAR and see if I find anything on there. Things have been much better lately. We are going to the gym together, having lots of bonding, just about every other day, and communicating better too. We've also started going back to church. She has been more affectionate and showing that affection more. All this aside, I still somehow feel that something is going on or something was going on. If something was going on, I can only assume that it's not any longer. Unless she's meeting somebody at work, at the gym, or when she visits her mother. I don't think she could have the time to do anything since we've been spending a lot of time together, as a family with the kids or just us alone. She swears that nothing is going on and nothing was going on and it was all just bad communication on both our parts. She said she's tired of being accused of something she is not doing and said she won't continue to put up with it. My comment, I feel like the revenge affair brought them closer and back together. It's weird, for some people they need revenge to teach them a lesson. Story 2. I recently discovered that my wife cheated on me. We've been married for nearly 16 years. Most of our relationship has been really good, with the usual ups and downs. I'll admit there were times in our marriage when I wondered if I loved my wife. There were times when I would flirt with other women, but have never stepped out of our marriage. Things took a turn when in 2013 my 18-year career took a huge tumble. I've been a commissioned salesperson all my life and my income dropped about 75%. The only thing I knew to do was work harder and as a result began working longer hours. I began learning about online marketing and began implementing it into my business with the hopes that I could resurrect my business. I was beginning to experience mild success and was generating a lot of leads, but because of the market few people were very motivated to buy. At some point I decided to begin focusing on online marketing and stayed with my business as long as I could because it was generating some income. Because I was juggling both, I was still putting in lots of hours, sometimes late into the night. A couple times I did all-nighters. I was in sheer desperation mode to save my home and my lifestyle. But it seemed the harder I worked, the worse things got financially. My health began to be impacted. I developed high blood pressure and sleep problems, and on weekends I'd be so exhausted I was incapable of really engaging with my family. In 2013, when all of this began, I became severely depressed and had what I think was a mild nervous breakdown. I had gotten the depression under control somewhat, but as I continued to work the long hours with few results, the depression would kick back in again. There were many times I'd go to my doctor's office weeping uncontrollably for no reason. I'd weep driving down the highway. I contemplated suicide many times, even to the point of knowing how I would do it. The point of all this is, I wasn't all that much fun to live with and I was not engaged with my wife enough to bring her along as a partner. I ceased communicating with her about all that was going on, because I had no energy and no answers for her. And her hostility toward me had increased because of our circumstances. She blamed me for abandoning my family, but at the same time said I should go get 3 jobs if necessary, so that I'm at least bringing in an income. In March 2016 we had a nice conversation about some things I was working on that I was hopeful about. I truly thought they were going to work. She said she supported me and that I should give it 6 months. I ended up working at it 6 months and then began trying to find a new job. Again, one more thing to add to my list of things to do while dealing with depression, not sleeping, etc. Okay, so fast forward to November 2017. By this time, I had stopped all of my marketing activities because I couldn't figure out how to earn consistent money. I found a full-time job that is a salary plus commission job. My wife and I had separated because of everything. She asked me to leave. I was living at a friend's and she and the kids remained at home. Periodically I would stay overnight at home, and when I did, I would sleep in our bed. Of course, nothing was happening besides sleep. I heard my wife's cell phone buzz in the middle of the night and thought it was someone texting her, so that suddenly sparked my curiosity. The next day I checked her cell phone records and discovered a phone number that appeared over and over and over again for about the last year, going back to October 2016, just over 6 months from our conversation where she said she supported me and gave me 6 months. I called the number and of course it was another man. I asked who he was. He told me a name and gave me a bullcrap story about why he was talking to my wife. I confronted my wife about it as well. She insisted they were just friends. I began tabulating the amount of time they spoke on the phone, and the average time they spent on the phone together was over 40 hours per month for the past 12 months. Could be longer, the phone records online only go back 12 months. She would say, "I know it looks bad, but I promise you we are just friends and we've only met twice, blah blah blah." A few days later I checked her cell phone voicemail and there were multiple messages on there from him, all professing his love for her. I won't share all of them, but one said how much he enjoyed seeing her last night and how much he enjoyed the intensity of the kisses and pinning her against the wall with his hands in her pants and fingers deep inside her, blah blah blah. As I'm sure you can imagine, I became quite angry and woke her out of bed by placing her phone next to her to listen to the message. She still to this day claims that never happened. She said, instead they were simply engaged in a fantasy role play over the phone, but besides the one time they did kiss, there was never anything beyond that. I don't believe her. With all of this, I love my wife and I want things to work out. I moved back into the house the day I discovered the phone calls and I've been there ever since. And I have been the one doing everything in my power to make things work. I have been the model husband, showering her with affection, cleaning the house, making her lunches for work, etc., professing how much I love her. Basically, I've been a pathetic doormat. I've been back in the home since November 8th and we still have not had slept together because she says she needs time. She needs time to get over all the hurt and resentment from my past behavior and for abandoning my family while I was trying to sort out my career. We hug and kiss and are affectionate that way, with me initiating of course, but we still have not had slept together. After reading some online about women's infidelity, I'm beginning to realize some things that hadn't dawned on me. She's likely mourning the loss of the other man and coming down from the chemical high she was on when she cheated in the first place. She's probably not even certain that she wants to be in this marriage. And I have been doing everything wrong. I've been a complete doormat for her basically, allowing her to feel as though her cheating was justified. I would welcome some feedback on what I should be doing, some perspective perhaps, because right now, we are not sleeping together indefinitely. And, well, it's pretty hard to swallow learning your wife has cheated and she's not interested in sleeping together. I should add that she hasn't had contact with him since D-Day that I'm aware of. I check her phone records daily as well as her personal email. She does have a work email that I don't have access to. Virtually everything about our relationship is way better than it was when I was working so many hours, and even better than it was for some time leading up to that time frame. She does have a job and she does help around the house. We are much more partners in that respect than we have been for quite a while. There have been times when she was a stay-at-home mom and she works in the school district, so she's home during the summer months. As a result, she has always tended to do more of the house cleaning while I would do the grocery shopping and the major cooking, entertaining, because I love grocery shopping and cooking. She believes it or not, likes doing laundry and vacuuming. We're actually both very civil to each other, and we communicate now more than ever. We spend a lot of time at night, after the kids go to bed, just talking things over. Sometimes our voices raise a bit, but for the most part, we have good communication. When we're in bed together, we cuddle. I'm able to touch her, although in one of our conversations she reiterated that she is not able to sleep together yet and expressed that she felt I was being too touchy right now. When I arrive home, she gets home from work before me, we embrace and kiss. We sit next to each other on the couch at night. We hold hands in the car and other places. She has stated that she feels I'm all about bonding right now and that we need to focus on our relationship and rebuild it. And I agree with that. I also agree that I'm all about bonding right now. I know I'm going through that response that BSs go through upon discovering the affair. However, when I spend most of my time playing mind movies in my head, it's excruciating that we're not able to fully reconcile that way. And maybe the reality is, it should be me who's not ready to reconcile because it may be a false reconciliation. Besides posting here, I have only told one close friend about this and we've only talked about it once because he's out of town on business. Meanwhile, all of our close friends have sort of gathered around her in support of her for the past couple of years because she's had to endure so much, and how can she still be hanging in there? Not one of them knows about the affair. Regarding the NC rule, should I require her to write and send a letter to him even if I believe she has stopped contact? How do I go from the way I've been handling this pathetic doormat to implementing the 180 thingy? I mean, if we're making progress, could the 180 rule short-circuit our progress? We have a home phone and she has a work phone, but she's in a classroom all day. Of course, that doesn't mean she doesn't talk to him from her work phone when she's on break, at lunch, etc., so that's possible, and it's possible she has another email account. She has told me that she was planning on breaking things off with him before I found out so that we could work on our marriage, yet all the way up until D-Day there was no change in the pattern of phone calls. If she was truly wanting to end things and she was choosing our marriage, I would expect to have seen a decrease in the number of times she called him, but that did not happen. I actually had voluntarily suggested a 90-day period of abstinence between us, to which she agreed. For me, abstinence is no release whatsoever, so I'm driving hands-free, if you know what I mean. I guess I'm finding it extremely difficult. I had no idea how difficult this was going to be. And it's a catch-22 because I know if I pressure her into sleeping together and she relents, it will provide no more relief for me, since now I'll just be wondering if she wanted to or if she was just appeasing me. I asked his name. He told me. He didn't know who I was by that point. They do not work together. I do know where he works because his voicemail indicated the name of his company, and I looked them up. I also figured out what his direct work phone number and have identified the times she called his work number versus cell. According to him, because I had a bit of a conversation with him, and according to her, they met because he is friends of someone she works with and they did a happy hour. On Monday she has a Christmas party with her employees right after work. I'm thinking of asking her not to go, not knowing whether he will be there again. At this point I don't know if it's a happy hour type of thing where it would be reasonable to think that friends might show up, or if it's an official holiday party at a school facility. She had always called his cell more often and in the past few months called only his cell. I believe she does have use of a phone at work, but I'm not 100% sure. I can verify by checking her business card. If I told my wife she needed to send an NC letter, and let's say she has gone underground, wouldn't she just call the OM and tell him, my husband's making me send this stupid letter to you? When you get it, just ignore it. Does the letter serve some other purpose? I did confirm that she neither has computer or phone access at work. She's a sign language interpreter and only has a small desk in class. No dedicated phone or computer. I monitor every single call she makes on her cell phone. In fact, I call every number I don't recognize. That leaves only the home phone. I'll be getting those call records ASAP. I'll also be tapping the computer and I'm looking into the VAR too. I asked her tonight where her holiday party was. She said it was a bar. I told her she can't go because OM is friends with one or more of her coworkers. She said she won't go if it's going to start big fight. What a wonderfully remorseful sentiment, right? Should I be exposing my WS to all of our mutual friends? Not one of them know about her affair. I've only told one close friend, and it wasn't until about 3 weeks after D-Day. Part of my motivation for telling them is to keep her accountable. The other motivation is vindication, since she has been being counseled by all of our close friends for over a year and they are all of the belief that I abandoned my family. In reality, I think she has exaggerated everything to justify her affair. I've got another question. My WW and I have been doing pretty well. For the most part, we've been working things out, but something is still bothering me. Actually, a lot of things are still bothering me, but one thing in particular has been bothering me lately. My WW and I have 2 friends, women, who were both recently divorced. We were friends with each respective couple prior to their divorce. My wife began meeting these 2 women at a bar for a girls' night out. It's kind of a regular thing on Wednesday nights. They don't meet every Wednesday, but they try to meet as often as they can. And if they don't meet at the bar on Wednesdays, my wife will often go spend a weekend night at one of their homes. Since they are no longer married, they have all sorts of free time for girls' nights. She spent Saturday night at one of their homes, a girls' night of watching movies and relaxing. I have no doubt at all that she was at this woman's home. I've known this woman since high school and we were close, platonic friends, before my wife and I met and married. We were even roommates for a couple of years after college. We lived together in a big apartment with 4 other people. Relationship has always been strictly 100% platonic, sister and brother type of relationship. But over the years my wife and her have become very close friends. We used to vacation together when they were married. But now it has bothered me before, and it still bothers me, that my wife, being married, hangs out regularly with recently divorced women, even if they are very close friends. They never met like this before the 2 got divorced. We only hung out as couples except for the occasional group girls' night out. There had certainly never been what seems to be now a standing appointment for Wednesday nights. The big thing that bothers me is that being parents of 2 young kids, free time is limited. With everything that has gone on over the past couple of years, it seems to me like the season we are in, or should be, is to be focused on mending our marriage. To me, that means we should be going on dates regularly, once per week or as close to that as possible. We should be making time for us. But, with a hectic lifestyle, this is nearly impossible when she chooses to spend so much time with friends. I have never ever in our relationship been a jealous or controlling husband. She has always been able to attend girls' events, weekends whenever they came up, etc. But now I guess I'm jealous of her time and want to spend this time with her and plan things for us to do. And I want her to stop accepting every girls' night out invitation that comes her way. Let's not even talk about the extreme anxiety I get and the checking I have to do each time she goes out without me. She has multiple groups of girlfriends, and as most of you know, girls plan girls' nights all the time. So, if she's not doing a girls' night with the aforementioned 2 girls, it's her girlfriends from high school or girlfriends in the neighborhood or girlfriends from college or girlfriends from another group. It seems my time with her is always in competition with the girls. Am I wrong to feel this way? Can I insist she stop spending so much time with the girls for a time while we prioritize our relationship? I mean, in every girl's night out there is one or two or more sometimes that can't make it. Not my wife. She makes every damn one of them, it seems. I'm working on making plans for tonight already. Hell, I'll go sit at a bar and listen to live music by myself if I have to. So far, not many guys available tonight. But I'm going to be gone tonight and I'm going to match her night out for night out, overnight for overnight from now on. My comment, I'm not sure adults can have emotional affair only. Maybe she misses that teenage lifestyle. Excluding the emotional affair, she should prioritize her family before her night outs. She needs to take on more responsibility as an adult, and OP is going to spend a decade teaching her that.